Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. Welcome to the program. Listen to this and tell me, is it ignorance or anti-Semitism?
The Holocaust isn't about race.
That, of course, will come to news as to the 6 million Jews who were killed by the Nazis. Will Whoopi Goldberg be held to account? Plus, tens of thousands of truckers parked their big rigs to protest vaccine mandates. Why the Freedom Convoy might actually work. But first, revenge of the Tiger Moms, armed with new data about just how much harm masks in school do and just how little they do to prevent serious disease. Now the fight is on.
We know that the risks of Omicron for children are minimal. Public health officials know that the masks that you require do not work against this variant and have called them useless facial decorations. Of course,
there are a few parts to this story. First, the parents, Carrie, Lukas, who you just heard from, will be with us in a minute. And there is some powerful new data behind her argument from The Atlantic, hardly a conservative outlet. The case against masks at school districts should rethink imposing on millions of children an intervention that provides little discernible benefit. If we are supposed to follow the science, and the science is clear, why keep masking 5-year-olds who are far, far more likely to die in a car crash or from drowning than from COVID? It ties into something we've been talking about for a while, months now, actually. When do we blow the whistle on the perpetual pandemic and get back to our normal lives? Here's former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb.
Society isn't going to tolerate these things in perpetuity. The mitigation that we've adopted have to be used to deal with epidemic peaks, not be a constant way of life.
But it feels like there are so many people who want it to be a constant way of life. We've talked a lot about why that is. Political power is the biggest reason, but there are more. We're going to get into that with George Will in a few minutes, including the important developments in the Spotify versus Joe Rogan debate. The left wants Rogan canceled, literally, over his COVID vaccine comments and questions. The media think Rogan is a right-wing nut, saying stupid stuff and should be covered that way. Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, two, shall we say, aging artists, have demanded Spotify pull Rogan. That Spotify has refused. It's a business story. We'll cover it that way. How much power do aging musicians actually have? Apparently not a lot. As a society, we are only as good as the next generation, and there is growing evidence COVID restrictions are causing irreparable harm. UK, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and others follow the World Health Organization that says having kids wear masks is, in a word, stupid. Yet 26 million kids in America wear a mask every day. Here's the map of states with mask mandates for schools. You will notice that Virginia is not on the list, and it's the source of potential lawsuits between school boards and parents in the liberal part of the Commonwealth over the issue. Once again, same parent, Carrie, Lukas.
my first grader has never been inside his school without a mask. He's never had a chance to smile at his friends or hear his teacher's unmuffled voice, and it is outrageous and ridiculous.
She isn't alone. There's lawsuits from California to Massachusetts. Carrie joins us now. Any response from the school board?
No, I haven't heard anything from the school board, and my kids are back in school and are wearing masks again because they have refused, the school has refused to give them the option that the governor has said is our right. It's incredibly frustrating.
Why do you think the school board is so interested in keeping the mask mandate?
At this point, I think it's purely political. This is our school board is made up of 12 Democratic members. They are from a very blue area, and we're very obviously personally upset about the victory of Governor Youngkin. And I think they just see this as their team blue, and the kids, kids are pushed to the side, and they want to keep this just as a thumb in the eye of the governor.
I just want to be clear, because you're making a pretty serious charge that you've got members of the school board that are intentionally harming children, because that's what the research shows, for political ends.
Well, I think that they may very well believe. I think that some of people are so dug in on this idea that that masks are good that they may still have internalized that, and they don't see a downside to it. I think a lot of these folks really have bought the data or bought the argument that this is somehow helping kids. But honestly, I find that almost hard to believe, because presumably these are people who actually see elementary schoolers in progress. I sometimes wonder when you hear people talk about mask use and its benefits, I think, have these guys been around little kids? Because I've got a 7-year-old and his mask comes home. Obviously, he's been taking it on and off all day, touching it with his hands, getting it rather dirty. It seems beyond imagination to me that anybody would think this was, a health benefit. But apparently, that's what they've claimed, and I maybe I should give them the benefit of the doubt and think they're just very misled and do believe that, and it's not all just political.
So if we go down the idea that they have this sincerely held belief, and there are people who, for example, you have a family that has a grandma living at home who's immunocompromised, and God forbid she gets COVID because she's going to die. Cloth masks worn perfectly protect you about 37% of the time. Therefore, all kids should wear masks to protect that one family.
I think that that's it's a pretty ridiculous argument. This is really the first time, I think, in history where we've decided to put the needs of the very oldest Americans ahead of the next generation. Most parents, I know my parents both are cancer survivors. They're living with cancer. And the last thing in the world they would think is we want a whole generation of children to wear masks for 40 hours a week on the off chance that this may somehow benefit me. I think most grandparents don't want their kids to not be able to live a normal life.
Glenn Youngkin won on the education issue, which we've covered a lot. And now he said there's no mask mandate, but school districts in blue parts of the state say they're going to keep these mandates. How does this end up getting litigated?
Yeah, well, we have been told that the Virginia Supreme Court will be considering whether the legality of this, and it really is frustrating as a parent because when it heard that this was something where an executive order came out of the previous Democratic governor and everybody followed along and took it very seriously, and now that executive order has been rescinded or been revised so that parents are supposed to have an opt-out, that somehow now school districts like mine are deciding just to ignore that. It's very frustrating, and I don't understand how it's legal. That while this is
you said the Supreme Court's going to decide whether it's legal or not, and then go from there. Carrie, we appreciate you being on. Obviously, you're a very vocal and powerful advocate for your kids. Any child would be lucky to have that in a parent. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Bring in Margery Smelkinson, infectious disease scientist, microscopicist, who made the case against masks in schools. You wrote the piece in The Atlantic, "The Case Against Masks at Schools. Districts should rethink imposing on millions of children an intervention that provides little discernible benefit." Boy, there's got to be a lot of other scientists who are really angry at you for this, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is very reminiscent about, when I was trying to reopen the schools last year, when people were saying it wasn't safe. And I was like, take a look around. There's a lot of schools that are open, like Europe is mostly open and a lot of states have opened. But a lot of the East Coast and the West Coast kept closed, and we just did not look at the data. So the anger that I'm feeling now is the same that I felt last year. So I'm quite used to it.
You work at NIH, which is the place that Dr. Fauci is, and that we follow the science. Why, if the science is as clear as you say it is, are people angry at you for talking about it?
I just want to say that I give a disclaimer. I am not representing the NIH.
Fair enough.
I was there, but
but you're employed there. You're a scientist. You believe in science. I'm just wondering why people who seem so deliberate about science, and if the science is as clear as your article makes it out to be, why they would be so angry with you and question it.
I think in the beginning, the science wasn't as clear. I think a lot of us masked up because, it was a very panicked beginning of the pandemic. But as time goes on, it's 2 years in, we just don't have the robust evidence we need to justify continue masking in school, especially when you weigh against the potential harms. I think health officials have dug in their heels. It's very hard to change course and admit when you're wrong, but that is science. That is a part of science. You make a hypothesis, you test it. If it fails, you change your hypothesis. And, you know, we're at a turning point in the pandemic. Omicron has really forced us to realize that this virus is not going anywhere. And Omicron is easing. Our children are now eligible to be vaccinated for 3 months now. Now is the time to figure out the best way forward to get these schools back to normal as much as we can. And this this requires taking a very hard look at the data behind the mitigation.
And I want to get to the data, and you make a great point that the hardest words in the English language are "I'm wrong," and people have a very difficult time saying this. The mask enthusiasts would push back against this and say, look, COVID case comparison, 16 per 100,000 schools with mask requirements, 35 per 100,000 without mask requirements. COVID's dangerous. Got to drive the numbers down.
So we looked at a lot of different studies, including those studies that you're citing there. You know, there were several studies last year, including one by the CDC, that showed that student masking did not, you know, significantly impact case rates in schools. This year, we're able to compare districts with and without mask mandates, neighboring districts that, you know, you can control for things like vaccination rates and demographics and things like that. And we're not really seeing that much difference in case rates between schools. Nearly half of US districts currently do not have mask mandates. There are some countries that never mask students.
I get the other issue is that, and I try to think about this, but you're protecting against what? You know, we so much of science is choosing what metrics to care about, right? And if you think about how do we prevent kids from dying, of COVID-19 in kids, 0.00 to 0.02 cases resulted in death. Childhood deaths in the United States from COVID-19 and other causes. COVID-19, less than 500. Firearms, well over 1,000. Motor vehicle deaths, well over 1,500. I guess it'd be a little bit like saying, okay, we're not going to have kids ride in cars because some die in traffic fatalities.
Right. I mean, I think in the beginning of the pandemic, we all masked up to protect the vulnerable. The logical off-ramp for masks was when vaccines were widely available to all adults. And so that was, you know, I guess March of 2021. And
I understand why we did everything that we did before, but if we look forward, why is there, other than not being willing to admit that people are wrong or that the science has changed, do you sense among a certain part of the scientific community that there is a love of the power, a love of the control of life to continue, like, for example, the CDC saying mask all these kids even when the World Health Organization says no?
I think that we have generally taken an overly cautious approach, and we are afraid to, a lot of people are afraid to, you know, give in. And with masks, it's very hard to quantify the harms. Unlike some other mitigations, like, you know, school closures.
Yeah, shutting down businesses is really easy to show the challenges. Masks, it sort of is a way to take toenail clippers from grandma at the TSA checkpoints, and everybody feels like they're doing something. Margery, your work is brave, and more importantly, your willingness to look at the data and change and talk about it. I know it may be unpopular, but we're sure glad you were here to talk to us, and come back as you find out more, all right?
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate it. Newly leaked video shows Border Patrol agents downright angry with the Biden administration. When U.S. Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz met with agents in Laredo, Texas on Friday, agents said politics are keeping them from doing their job.
And I get it. You come to work, you're frustrated, you're upset because you didn't get the desired outcome that you want. Doesn't mean you give up, right? I know you're not.
It's kind of hard to say that. To defend the Constitution, not the...
It's not hard to say it. It may be hard for you to say it, but I've been doing this for 31 years. It's not hard for me to say it.
Then you keep releasing...
Because you're kidding.
A source gave that video to journalist Ali Bradley. If you care about the border, follow her on Twitter. She is live in Del Rio. You can see the wall behind her. Boy, Ali, I've seen people let their boss have it, but that was a new level.
Certainly was, Leland, especially with the secretary right there looking on. I mean, their main boss was standing there as they were touring a couple of stations. The chief and the secretary were going around the border. They were in Yuma prior to that, and one of the agents there reportedly turned his back on the secretary. So they definitely had some heated exchanges during their kind of border tour.
What do you hear from the agents? And obviously, the Border Patrol, as many times as we've asked, won't talk to us. But you've got great sources. Where does this go from here? It almost felt like they weren't ready to give up, but that they were sort of powerless in light of the Biden administration's policies.
So a couple of things here, Leland. First of all, the agents I've talked to after this video, asking them, can I get a response? What do you feel? You know, if you weren't in that room, how did that video make you feel? A lot of them told me that they feel betrayed. They feel abandoned by the administration and by their own boss. Now, when I talked to the chief actually called me today. We just spoke a couple of hours ago. And he said, you know, right now they are working on some solutions for the border. They are trying to figure out how to get these guys back into the field doing the job that they, quote, signed up for. Now, he did say that him and the secretary were trying to figure out the best course moving forward. I asked him to comment on the video. He said this juncture, he cannot make a comment on that video just yet.
You know, it's interesting. What the Border Patrol agents are so frustrated about is what you've been reporting, we've been reporting, is that because of the just sheer number of people coming over, the Border Patrol basically become border processing. They're simply just picking people up and processing them rather than actually trying to stop anybody from coming in. Some of the numbers apprehended in December, 178,840. That's double, triple, quadruple some of the numbers in the past. You think about December 2019, only 40,000. That's 178,000 were apprehended. Tens of thousands of those were released into the United States. And then obviously all the ones that got across that weren't apprehended got into the United States. The chief told you that he was going to try to do something about this. Can you change the numbers without changing the policies?
And I don't know the answer to that, right? Because they're saying these policies are in place, but we know they're not the same policies that we've seen in the former administration. So I'm not sure what their plan is going to be. I mean, I just know that it's, you know, one paintbrush swoop across the border isn't going to fix it. And that's kind of, you know, what the American public thinks is the solution is, hey, there's one fail swoop that we can come in and fix this. And there's a lot of different issues there. There's not just one problem, and there's not just, you know, one solution, I don't think, to this issue. I talked with the NGO, the biggest NGO here in the valley, in Rio Grande Valley, which is the busiest sector. You know, and she's saying, herself saying, the administration needs to get the messaging right. The messaging is all wrong. It's getting across incorrectly. It's being misconstrued. And until they get the messaging right, these people are just going to continue to come.
Well, and probably with good reason, because some of the video you had captured showed all the single men being let out of the San Antonio airport and sent wherever they wanted to go. The video from that meeting was stunning. You keep releasing criminal aliens into the country. Nobody knows better than the folks that you talk to, your sources in the Border Patrol. At Ali Bradley TV on Twitter. Ali, great work as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Leland. Stay safe.
Yeah, you indeed. Coming up, instant outrage on The View after Whoopi Goldberg makes a shocking claim.
Then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
It is.
No, it's about
a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy. It's about
but
going
it's
after
not,
Jews
not about
and
race.
gypsies
But these are two
Romans.
white groups of people.
Just so we are clear, that's a segment from The View today where Whoopi Goldberg said the Holocaust wasn't about race. Just so we're clear, let's listen to it again.
Then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
It is hard to imagine anybody could be so ignorant of history or so minimizing of the mindset that led 6 million Jews to the gas chamber, but It's 2022. Here we are. Chris Hahn, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast, with us. Full disclosure, Chris, this is personal for both you and I. Was this ignorance or anti-Semitism?
Completely ignorant. I don't think Whoopi's anti-Semitic. I hope she's not. But maybe she needs to read Maus and understand better what white supremacy and the Nazis were all about. They were racists. She was dead wrong, and she needs to apologize to every Jew in America and every person like you and I who have family members who have survived the Holocaust. And I was shocked when I saw that, frankly. And she missed the point completely of it. And look, I mean, if we forget this stuff, if we don't teach this stuff, if we don't allow ourselves and our children to be uncomfortable by discussing this stuff, we are always going to forget it. And it's going to become hard for some politicians in America to even denounce Nazis, which happened today in Florida. I would like to see her come out there tomorrow on The View and take a full retraction of what she said. If she didn't, you know what? Invite me back tomorrow night.
You're always invited. Look, Whoopi Goldberg's not stupid, and the issue of race and racism to her is something that she talks about all the time. Everything to her seems to be about race when it's about black versus white. Here is her talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. Take a listen.
I think it's really a red light for white folks coming to help at social justice protests, because basically what they're saying is, oh, it's okay to shoot white people too.
You are a man of great sort of grace and gentlemanly behavior, but isn't sort of writing something like this off to ignorance how we ended up with the Holocaust, how your grandfather ended up as a refugee in America and then going back to fight the Nazis?
Yeah, I agree with you there, Leland.
Let me turn around.
Write it off.
If she doesn't apologize, is it anti-Semitism?
Yes. If she doesn't apologize, if she does not apologize soon, she's going to hear a lot worse from people like me. She's hearing a lot right now, quite frankly. You know, finds it, you know, like you have me agreeing with Ben Shapiro. You know, I don't really like to be in that company. No offense to Ben. I know Ben, he's a friend of mine. But we don't usually agree on anything.
Right.
And, I'm in agreement with him that what she said was completely wrong. And it misses the point of the Holocaust. But also, look, you know, when people are calling for Governor DeSantis to denounce Nazis, that's not gotcha either. Right?
No,
so let's be fair. There are two things that happened today around this.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think what's interesting is that you've got a group of women on The View who are so quick to tell everyone how to live their lives and to call anything and everything racism, and then suddenly the Holocaust isn't racist. Are you surprised that there wasn't a stronger reaction from the other women on the panel when this happened?
Well, you know, Joy Behar did push back twice. I mean, I watched that clip a couple times, and there was some debate about it, and it just kind of got brushed off. So yeah, no, I do think that there was some pushback, but definitely not enough. I think people were probably in shock that she was even saying it. I mean, I was. I honestly didn't see it. I don't watch The View. This might come as a surprise to you. I don't watch The View, but your producer sent me the clip, and I watched it. And I was shocked, frankly. Look, I loved Whoopi Goldberg's stand-up career. I've enjoyed her movies over the years, especially Ghost. That was shocking to me to hear her say that. I find her to be very smart on most issues, and for her to be so stupid and wrong on this one was shocking to me.
Yeah, I'm looking. We pulled up a picture that you kindly sent. This is how technically we are. Here's the picture of your grandfather back in Germany. In his U.S. military uniform with a dog. Tell us about him, what he taught you about the Holocaust, and what he would want us to know vis-a-vis what Whoopi said.
Well, he would want us to know that his entire family was wiped out because the Nazis thought that we were an inferior race. He would tell you that we have very limited relatives on my family. Even though Hahn's a very common name, the direct descendants of my family are mostly wiped out, murdered by the Nazis because they were Jews. My grandfather was fortunate to get out, came over on the Kinder transport, originally to England and then to the United States, came to the United States, wasn't here very long, enlisted in the military, went back to Germany, was a spy for the United States, could hear the Germans understood what they were saying, spoke fluent German, obviously, and was an asset to the United States to fight the Nazis. Then he commuted for 30 years on the Long Island Railroad, and in the end, Leland, it was Florida that killed him, although he did live there for 25 years.
In the sun when he was there. Hey, Chris, thank you for coming on. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. And fascinating to see if... Yeah.
Yeah, she's got no... She better be getting educated tonight.
Yeah, well, there's a group of people who believe that racism can only be white against black. And that was the point she made. We'll see if she doubles down on it or not. Chris, good to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Right man for this discussion. Joe Rogan hits back at his critics, but who decides what is and is not misinformation? George Will might have an answer for that. We'll talk to him after the break.
Again, I'm not trying to promote misinformation. I'm not trying to be controversial. I've never tried to do anything with this podcast other than just talk to people and have interesting conversations.
That's Joe Rogan today after a weekend of demands that Spotify, the big podcast group, cancel their $100 million man for delivering misinformation. Yes, we put that in air quotes because there's a lot of debate about whether what he said was really misinformation about the COVID vaccine. He apologized over the backlash because of interviews he had discussing the effectiveness of COVID vaccines and therapeutics. Spotify also responded to the criticism from listeners. The CEO of Spotify says the platform will now feature a COVID-19 hub that gives listeners easy access to data-driven facts. Roughly 11 million people listen to Rogan's podcast, which does not specifically focus on COVID. It focuses on whatever Rogan wants to talk about. Already, a number of musicians have pulled their music from Spotify as a form of protest. Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and Nils Lofgren. If you're wondering who he is, he evidently was made famous by Bruce Springsteen. So there you go. If you're a fan of those three, got to get it somewhere else. It's Monday. That means George Will, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and NewsNation senior contributor, is with us. Is this as simple as cancel culture versus capitalism and capitalism won?
No, I don't think these aging rock and rollers are trying to cancel him. They're saying they don't want to be associated with him on the same platform, which is their business. What he does, he has an obligation to, A, be broadly responsible, and to put the other side out when he's being controversial. Now, he said, somewhat chastened, he said, well, when you got 11 million people, you really do feel a certain burden. I'm sorry, I think if you have 11 listeners, let alone 11 million, you have to have the same standards of intellectual propriety. But I think everyone's behaved rather well in this. He is somewhat chastened. Spotify says we're going to make sure that everyone has access to information on these controversial topics, and we'll go on. But I think it's wrong to say that people are trying to cancel him.
Fair enough, although they did say if you don't take him down, then you take our music down. But I understand the point. Go ahead.
That's canceling themselves, which they're perfectly free to do.
That's true, and they did indeed do that. This brings up the debate over who decides what is and is not misinformation versus divergent opinions.
Well, it's an editorial function. Television stations, radio stations, newspapers, magazines all have editors. Now, the platforms that we deal with often, Facebook and all the rest, say we're not publications like that. We don't have editors. We're simply passive, and we're not responsible for what goes on it. Spotify, it seems to me, is not like that. Spotify should think of itself as akin to an op-ed page of a newspaper, and it should have standards. It's that simple.
Yeah, I think it was Scott Pelley who said about Twitter and Facebook and everybody else, when everybody is a publisher, there is no editors. That brings us to sort of this other issue that's happening in Canada, the Canadian trucker protest. And there are tens of thousands of trucks now parked in Canada to protest the vaccine mandate requiring truckers entering Canada to be fully immunized against COVID and vice versa across the border. Is this a tipping point in the vaccine mandate debate?
Well, when turbulence reaches Canada, you really do have a worldwide phenomenon. I do think it is exactly as you indicate, a symptom of something worldwide. It's a quiet, mostly quiet, declaration of independence on the part of people who've had it in the third year of the pandemic. They said, the fact is, the pandemic is going to become endemic. We're going to have to live with this. Let's start now. We're tired of being bossed around. And again, as I said, the fact that it came to Canada, which is really not known for its turbulence, tells you something about just how widespread and how deep the feeling is.
Yeah, and you've got Justin Trudeau, the prime minister, not really seeming to understand that, doubling down and saying, if you don't want to get the vaccine to be a trucker, you're racist. Take a listen.
I want to be very clear. We are not intimidated by those who hurl insults and abuse at small business workers and steal food from the homeless. We won't give in to those who fly racist flags.
Is he missing the point?
I don't think he's in the same neighborhood as the point. I mean, the truck drivers are not making racial statements. You may agree with them or disagree with them, but in fact, these long-haul truck drivers, who are some of the hardest working people on the planet, and who under the North American Free Trade Agreement depend on going back and forth across international borders for their livelihood, should not have their difficulties mocked by this politician who resorts to the standard grab bag of insults.
It brought us, and the reason we put these two together is it sort of comes to this larger issue of the divide in America, and for that matter in Canada as well. This class and culture divide that people like Justin Trudeau really don't understand the truckers, and the truckers really don't understand Justin Trudeau. Are we getting to the kind of divide that, say, you saw in the 1850s, where the cities in the Union had absolutely no understanding of the life of those on the plantations in the South, and people became so disdainful of each other?
There is a disdain threshold that is dangerously high right now. But I think, by the way, Leland, that the truckers understand Trudeau perfectly well. This isn't a case of misunderstanding. It's a case of perfect understanding on their part. But it's not just happening here. There's something else I know you want to talk about. What you see in the United States with Mr. Rogan and the division here, and in Canada, Trudeau and the truckers, look what's happening in Britain, where the prime minister, who fancies himself a populist, who, without parliament, on his own hook, imposed upon the British people some of the most draconian lockdowns. They couldn't be with loved ones when they died. When they went to funerals, they were fined and prosecuted if they hugged at a funeral. Turns out that the man who imposed the rules was having parties. Now, he denies that. He says lots of things. He says, well, they weren't parties, and I didn't go to them, but the ones I went to, they really were talking about work, so they weren't quite parties, even though they were told to bring their own booze, and did so in suitcases. Now, what makes this so salient in Britain, and might cost Boris Johnson the job as prime minister, is that he fancies himself a man of the people. And people have looked at him and said, oh my goodness, he's just like all the rest. And the result has been severe. He's gone from a 29% plus approval rating to 50-some minus disapproval rating in the span of a very few months, because people are simply tired, A, of being bossed around, and B, the feeling they're being bossed around by hypocrites.
Yeah, there's sort of nothing more irritating to the normal soul than being bossed around by a hypocrite. We could only find you, sir, to make sense of Joe Rogan, Canadian truckers, and Boris Johnson. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.